For Lesson 39, we're going to be talking about linear measurements, both the traditional, the ones you're used to, the standard measurements of inches, feet, and yards, and then also the metric system that we're maybe not as used to. And how to convert from one to the other is what's important to us. So let's look first at the standard measurements we're used to. 1 foot, we have to know these conversions. You have to know these relationships. 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. A mile is equal to 5,280 feet, and a mile is also equal to 1,760 yards. So you need to memorize those four. You might want to write them on a card and learn them, those four relationships. I'm going to show you how to convert between any of those relationships that you might have to. In example 1, we're going to go from 84 inches to feet. And there's one system that works for these conversions. You don't have to learn whether you multiply or divide, if the units are bigger or smaller. All you have to do is learn this one system and you're good to go. So how do we do it? The first thing we do is we take the units we're converting from, the 84 inches, and we write 84 inches. We write it as fraction over the number 1. Now, we're going to be multiplying two fractions. So let's go ahead and put our multiplication and our second fraction in place. The second fraction, in the numerator, we put the units that we're going to be converting to. We're going to be moving it to feet. So we're going to feet. And then below feet, in the denominator, we put the unit that we're coming from. We're coming from inches. So inches to inches, they match up diagonally across, and we have to now know the relationship between feet and inches. In other words, how many feet are in an inch or how many inches are in a foot. You should know that one. It is 1 foot, 12 inches. Once we have that relationship, we're ready to go. Let's go ahead and cross out the inches because we're now going to be converting to feet. The only unit we need to hold on to is feet. And let's see what happens when we do this multiplication. 84 times 1 is, of course, 84, and 1 times 12 is 12. Well, to complete this problem, we're going to have to divide 84 divided by 12, which if you know your 12 times table, you know that's 7. 7 what? Well, the unit that was left is feet. So 84 inches is 7 feet. Let's take example 2 and do it again. We're going to be going from 12 yards. Let's write that as the top part of our first fraction over the number 1. Multiplication, our second fraction, what are we converting to? We're converting to feet. And what were we coming from? Well, let's put yards down here in the denominator. Now all we have to know is the relationship between feet and yards. Another one we should know. 1 yard, 3 feet. Now all we have to do is cross out yards. We don't need yards anymore. We're going to be converting to our new unit of feet. And let's multiply numerators and denominators. 12 times 3 is 36, and 1 times 1 is just 1. In other words, this already came out to be the whole number 36. The unit we're converting to is feet. 12 yards will equal 36 feet. Example 3 gets us a chance to try it with decimals. 1.2 miles is where we begin. Let's write it over the number 1. And we're going to be going to the fraction, and we're going to be converting to feet. We're coming from miles, so miles has to be down in the denominator of the second fraction. So you have to know the relationship now between feet and miles. That's one I gave you. 1 mile, 5,280 feet. It's quite a bit. Let's get rid of the unit we don't need anymore. Those are miles. And let's do the math. What is it asking us to do? Multiply 5,280 times 1.2. Well, I'm not going to do that horizontally, so I'll just write that down vertically, 5,280 times 1.2. Notice that in the denominators of these two fractions, I have ones, so this is really going to be a whole number when I finish. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 8, 16. Carry 1. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. And 2 times 5 is 10. Let's put a 0 and multiply times the number in the tens place, which is 1. 1 times 0, 1 times 8, 1 times 2, and 1 times 5. Now we have to add these two numbers. 6, 13, carry a 1, 3, and 6, and we need decimal places. Well, in the two of them combined, I only have one decimal place, so it goes right here. So my answer, 6,336 feet is 1.2 miles. For example 4, we get to do this with fractions. So let's look at 8 1/2 feet. Now, I'd rather use decimals than fractions, because if you're going to use fractions, you're probably going to have to convert it to an improper fraction to do the work. So let's think. 1/2 as a decimal is 0.5. We know that one. So 8 1/2 is really 8.5. Let's use the decimal 8 1/2 or 8.5 for 8 1/2. And we would start off by saying 8.5 feet over the number 1 multiplied times, and we're going to be converting to inches, and we're coming from feet. Inches to feet, well, 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. Now, cross out the units we no longer need. We're going to be doing multiplication again, and look, our denominators are 1s, so we can just multiply numerators, and we have whole numbers. I've got 8.5, that's what I needed up here, 8.5 times 12, just because it makes it easier. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 8, 16, plus the 1 I carried. Write down a 0, and now multiply 1 times 5 and 1 times 8. Add my numbers. I've got 12, carry my 1, 10. And how many decimals do I need? I've only got 1 decimal, and it's in my multipliers, and so I've only got 1 that needs to be placed. So what is my answer? 102, and the unit is inches. 102 inches. And of course, you don't have to write the decimal and the trailing 0 there. Now let's talk a minute about the metric system. There's a sentence that we need to learn if we're going to work metric problems, and it is this one that's listed for you. King Henry doesn't usually drink chocolate milk. Now what that does is it puts the units that we have in the metric system in order for us, and that's important when we're converting from one to the other. So before you take your next test, memorize this sentence, and as your test, when you get your test, before you work any problems, write down King Henry doesn't usually drink chocolate milk. Then when you get to the metric conversion problems, you'll have it ready to go. Now what does the K, it stands for, as you can see, we're going to stand for the metric measurements, kilo. H is hecto. D, this first D is deca, D-E-K-A. U, well, those are special. Those are units. They can be meters, liters, or grams, and for this purpose, for our problems, they're probably all going to be meters. Then we have D again. This is the small d. It's deci. C, which is centi, you've heard of these before, and M, which is milli. Those are the really tiny ones. So we're moving from the largest units, which is our largest measurement, kilo, to the smallest measurement, milli. Let's take example 5 and use it as we see how to work this. If we start with 46 meters, you can see that we're going to begin right here in the middle where units are. That's meters. 46 meters, and we have to go to centimeters. So here's centimeters over here. Now, the question we have to ask is, how many jumps do we have to make to get from the meters to the centimeters? Well, I start at meters, and I make 1, 2 spaces, and I'm going in the direction I'm going is to the right. That's how many places, and that's the direction I move my decimal point. In 46 meters, my decimal point starts right here. It has to move 2 places to the right. I'm going to be moving it all the way over here. So, how many centimeters are in 46 meters? It would be 4,600. Let's try it again with millimeters and meters. With millimeters, I'm beginning down here at the end, and meters, of course, is my unit, so I'm coming up here to the to the middle one. So how many jumps do I need to make? How many places do I need to move my decimal, and in which direction? Well, I'm coming to move it to the left. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 spaces. 3 spaces in a left direction. I start with 6,400 millimeters. There's my decimal. If I move it 1, 2, 3 spaces, my new decimal has to go between the 6 and 4. 6.4 meters. Now look, remember not to count the unit that you begin on. You just count the number of jumps that you make. Let's try kilometers to centimeters. When I start with kilometers, I'm starting way up here in the largest numbers or largest units, and centimeters takes me down here to almost the smallest. How many spaces do I move my decimal? Well, from kilometers, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 spaces to the direction is right. I start with 0.95. I'm going to move it 1, 2, and I better add some zeros. 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to use this arrow to show my new decimal place. So if I have 0.95 kilometers, how many centimeters do I have? It looks like I have 95,000 centimeters. Okay, 1,700 millimeters to meters. Remember, meters is the unit measurement we have in the middle. From millimeters to meters, 1, 2, 3 jumps, and we have to move to the left. With with the unit we start with 1,700. Here's where our decimal begins. 3 to the left goes 1, 2, 3. My new decimal goes between the 1 and the 7. The answer, 1.7 meters. All you have to do is write down KHDUDCM before you begin your next test, and then you'll be able to use it when you're converting metric. How do you remember those letters? King Henry doesn't usually drink chocolate milk.